Good morning. My name is LB, and what I have today is a growth calculator that I intend to give to you absolutely free of charge, completely complimentary. But before I do that, I want to show you how it works and what you can use this calculator to find out, right? This calculator is in essence your business dashboard or your business from the marketing point of view, from the eagle's point of view, right? It's the bird's eye view of your business, right? Let's go through what it does and how it does. And the simplest way to do that would be for me to go in and just jump right into it and show you how it works, okay? So the first thing that you can do here is enter your advertising budget. Now there are a few things that you're going to enter, and it's going to calculate and tell you what the profit you have is right now with your current company, right? So the advertising budget, it's the amount of money you spend every year on advertising. Here's the thing though. If you advertise and do not track how many leads you get as a consequence of advertising, then you are practically wasting money on advertising. But as smart marketers and smart business owners, you probably already know that. So let's say you spend $50,000 a year on advertising, right? Which is not a huge amount for a small business. A lot of small companies do anywhere between $30,000 to $90,000 to $100,000 a year in advertising, right? And let's say you spend $15 or $25 to get a lead, to acquire a lead, right? That's what you're spending right now. So if you spend $25 to acquire a lead, and if you spend $50,000 a year acquiring leads, then it's a matter of simple math that the number of leads you get is 2,000, right? Now let's say you convert 40% of those leads into clients. Conversion rate basically means what percentage of those prospects, those leads who've come in, and what percentage of those people who've come in you convert into paying clients, people who actually give you money and give you their trust and open their wallets and say, all right, let's have a transaction, right? And then, oh, by the way, before we move ahead, I want to define a lead for you. A lead is not someone whose contact details you have. A lead is someone who's actively raised their hand and expressed interest in what it is that you're offering. So let's say you advertise a widget, a $10 widget, and someone who raises their hand and says, okay, I want this $10 widget, is a lead, right? Now that widget may not be your core product. It should not be if you're a smart business person. But what that lead does is it separates or it filters the prospects from non-prospects. So that's the conversion rate. How many of those leads do you convert into actual paying clients, right? Then what's the transaction value? So when you sell something to them, how much money do they spend on an average in one transaction? Now this is a hard number to calculate, but if you're having a real hard time thinking about what this number is, do this. Simply take the revenues you've generated in the last 12 months and divide that by the number of transactions you've had. So let's say you've had $100,000 in revenues and 1,000 transactions. So that's 100,000 divided by 1,000 transactions. That's $100 per transaction, right? That's the amount of money that an average transaction pulls in, right? So let's just say it's $100. But that's not all profit, right? That's the revenue. You're going to have some costs. You may have, and right now I'm not talking about advertising costs because we have already taken those into account separately. So I'm just talking about the other costs you have, the hard costs of the products that you buy, or the raw materials that you buy, or the service providers you pay, or the staff you pay, right? Those are your costs. You take those off. What's the profit margin? Let's just say it's 40%. Now, let's move on to transaction frequency. How many times does an average client come back to you each year, right? So if someone buys from you today, you already have their trust. You've spent some money acquiring that client, right? You've spent some money acquiring those leads in order to get that client. But if they keep coming back to you again and again, you don't have to spend as much money marketing or advertising to them as you did in order to first acquire them, right? So in the beginning, it might have taken you, in this example, it took you, so you have 800 clients, $50,000. That's about 65, 66, wait, anyway, $62.5, right? That's the cost of acquisition in this example, right? And I just did that math in my mind because I'm a math wizard. Don't try this at home. I'm a professional mathematician. I'm not. So how many times does an average client come back to you each year? Now it costs you $62.5 to acquire this one client. Would it not make sense to spend another $2 or $3 or $5 every year just marketing to this client, just sending them a letter or an email or a phone call, making a phone call to them, just staying in touch with them, right? You already spent $62.5 to acquire this one client. If you spend another few dollars, they might just keep coming back to you again and again and again. And so let's say the transaction frequency, that is the number of times an average client come back to you every year, right? How many times do they come back to you every year? Is 3. They come back to you for 3 times, but they only come back for 1 year, right? That's what we will assume in this example. They don't keep coming back year after year. They come back to you 2 more times, and that's it, right? They make their initial purchase, then they purchase something from you 2 more times, and that's it. Now, you take all this into account, and what you have is the profit, right? This should be pretty close to what you're making right now or what your client is making right now if you're plugging in their numbers. And by the way, if you're a consultant, feel free to use this calculator with your clients in front of their clients. Just take it to them and plug in their numbers and they'll be blown, right? They might not even know all these things about their business, and that already tells them something. It tells them that you know what you're talking about. It tells them that you have a system to place systems in their business, right? They want to systemize their business, and you've got a system to make that happen. You've got a process to make that happen. So it tells you what the profit number is. You can actually amaze them. If they give you all those numbers, you can amaze them by telling them, hey, you're making $46,000 a year in pure profit. And they'll be like, wow, how did you know that? Right? So now I'm going to give you the simplest way of growing any business, right? And the simplest way of doing that, well, I'm just going to copy all these numbers over here so that you can see. And so on the second column that we have that says grown at the top, we're going to adjust these numbers and make some future projections so that we can see the kind of numbers we can get, right? Simplest way of growing any company is by adjusting the advertising budget, right? If you have a company that is working, if you have an advertising budget that is profitable, right? If you have an advertising campaign that is profitable, then you simply increase the advertising budget, and you can see that you can grow the company. So if you increase the advertising budget by 50%, you can witness a 50% growth, right? It's not 150%, it should be 50%. So I'll adjust this before I send out the calculator to you. But for now, just subtract 100 from whatever you see in this column right here. Now, let's do the interesting stuff. So let's say they have an ad that they've been using for the last 3 years and it has been working pretty consistently. It costs them $25 to acquire a client. But you go in and test a bunch of new ads, right? You spend about $1,000 testing 3 new ads. And you find that one of those ads actually gets you a new lead for just $20 instead of $25, which means you can get more leads, right? If you spend less money on acquiring a lead, you get more leads, right? Now, so the number of leads is obviously going to go up. When it was 25, you would have had 3,000 leads, but when it's 20, you now have 3,750 leads. Notice how the growth number continuously keeps on changing, right? And for the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to change the advertising budget now. I'm going to assume that you do not have more money to put in for advertising, or if you're doing this for a client, they don't have a strong enough relationship with you right now to trust you with doubling their advertising budget right away, right? So you've got to make miracles happen without increasing their advertising budget. You can see the growth is already 52%. And by the way, remember, that's 52%, not 152%. When you get this calculator, it's going to be adjusted. You've just done a little bit of testing and tracking, and you found an ad that works better than their original ad. So now the number of leads has gone up from 2,000 to 2,500, right? You can also obviously improve the conversion rate, right? But this is something that's a bit harder You have to think about it in a bit more strategic way. So I'm just going to say that you increase it from 40% to 42%. That's it. Not a lot of increase. That's not a huge increase. That's just 2%, right? You can put in some systems in place to make that happen, right? Now, we get down to transaction value. This is interesting because this is the simplest way. This is the simplest thing that you can improve. If I go into a new business with a new client, or if I acquire a company, what I do is I focus on increasing the transaction value because it's so simple. And it's generally just a matter of offering an upsell or a cross-sell or a downsell, depending upon what the client has done, right? What the customer or the client has done. So I'm going to assume that you're going to have absolutely no problems increasing the transaction value from $100 to $125 by simply adding one more upsell to their selling process, right? And that could mean training their sales staff, that could mean optimizing their web funnel, whatever it means for them or whatever it means for you if you run your own business. It's great. Profit margins, again, they're slightly hard to increase. They're just not as easy as transaction value to increase, but that can be done. So if you can cut costs, that's one of the simplest ways to increase the profit margins, right? If you can just find out where it is that they're wasting money and just take away 2% of that, then the profit margins go up from 40% to 42%, right? Now, we come down to the interesting things. That is the transaction frequency and relationship length. Chances are that even if they're spending $62.5 to acquire a client, they're not even spending $6.25 a year to remarket to the same clients, to get more business from the same clients again and again. They're not. And if you can do that, if you can do just that, right? If you could just do that, you can definitely increase both transaction frequency and relationship length, right? Out of sight is out of mind. But if you keep communicating with their clients, or if you're running a business and if you keep communicating with your clients, you can easily see that the more offers you make, the higher the transaction frequency goes. And the more offers you continue making and the longer you continue communicating, the longer that relationship is going to last, right? It may not even just continue to be a business relationship. It might actually become a personal relationship if you have good clients, right? If you have a great relationship with clients. So I'm going to assume that you can build up a follow-up system, and simply doing that will bump up your transaction frequency, not by a lot, but just from 3 to 4, right? So instead of buying from you 3 times a year, they now buy from you 4 times a year. And then the relationship length can be increased from 1 year to just 1.5 years. That's not huge. I would have easily said 3 here, and that's easily doable by follow-up systems. But for the sake of being conservative, I'm going to say 1.5 here. Look at these numbers. We started with $46,000 and we are up to $280,000 and $750. That's 510% in growth. And these are conservative numbers. Now, if you run your own business, do you want 6 times more profit this year? You absolutely do, right? So go ahead, download the growth calculator. It's absolutely free. You can get it right away. All you have to do is enter your name and email address, and you don't have to stay subscribed. You enter your name and email address, within 10 minutes you're going to get the calculator, and then if you want, you can unsubscribe, right? If you're not happy with the content that I'm giving you. So this is LB, and I'm going to see you inside. And good luck with the calculator. I hope you have fun using it as much as I had making it.